today. I, Professor Chainika Basu, on behalf of IMC Chamber of Commerce and Dr. Vishwanath Karad, MIT World Peace University, welcome each one of you to the 4th edition of Indcon, focusing on the Kolkata and Guwahati region. Indcon is a revolutionary online conference between industry and academia to drive research and development policy reforms in India. This 3-day virtual conference will have different sessions aligned with the theme of this year, which is building stronger research and development ecosystem, enabling Saksham Bharat Abhiyan, which will also witness some of the industry specialists sharing their expertise and enlightening all of us. I shall now request the technical team to play the video on Indcon. Over to my technical team.
Becoming a global leader is a noble dream. What is our strength as India? It is knowledge. The strength of a nation in the digital age we find ourselves in is governed solely by its research and development index. The speed by which technology is accelerating has been unmatched since the dawn of humanity. India boasts of the largest manpower pool under the age of 30 in the world. Though we have potentially a gold mine of researchers with us, we barely produce any research. We have to import technology from nations like China. Our universities and our industry do not seem to share the deep connection that they do in countries like the US or China. That is why the IMC's Knowledge Committee, in association with MIT World Peace University, are hosting Indcon, a revolutionary online conference between industry and academia. The way for India to become a global leader lies in its repository of knowledge. Indcon is the way to do so.
Thank you so much. Indcon 2021 is organized by IMC Chamber of Commerce and Industry under the leadership of Shri Rajiv Podar and Knowledge Committee Chairman Shri Rahul V. Karad. The Center for Industry Academia Partnership at MIT World Peace University has taken up the responsibility of organizing Indcon across 11 cities of India, which should include industry leaders, academicians, as well as representatives of the government under the dynamic leadership of Mr. Praveen Patil, the CEO of CIAP, along with Dr. Prasad Khandekar, the chairman of the organizing committee. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to briefly introduce CIAP. The Center for Industry Academia Partnership was started with the intention to build collaborations with industry and academia to encourage the maximum potential and impact outcomes. This step is taken in the direction to develop innovative solutions through process-driven approach. It is indeed my deep honor and privilege to introduce Mr. Praveen Patil, the CEO of the Center for Industry Academia Partnership, who has been a pioneer in developing it and taking this initiative ahead by bringing about a significant change in the university. After a thorough discussion on day 1 and day 2, the theme of this session is the challenges in implementing high-quality research and development programs in India. Before formally handing over the session to moderator Dr. Ganesh Kakandikar, I shall request the technical team to relay the session video. Over to the technical team.
High-quality research plays a crucial role in advancing science and technology and will provide mileage to economic growth as well. Globally, India is the 6th in the list of countries in terms of investment in R&D, with its share increasing slowly but steadily from 3.5% in 2015 to 3.8% in 2017. However, Indian universities continue to perform poorly in global rankings due to low research outcomes. lack of quality faculty and low research capability is plaguing the Indian research scenario. Therefore, the first step should be a public-private initiative to launch faculty development programs in leading universities in India and focus on more outcome-based research. Additionally, the industry should participate in developing the entrepreneurial culture in India by setting up incubation centers and research parks for innovative research. Let us discuss this now.
Thank you so much. Today, we are deeply honored to have very esteemed members on our digital dais. We have amongst us Mr. G. Chandrashekhar, Economic Advisor, IMC and Director, IMC ERTF, Dr. Ayan Banerjee, Professor of Department of Physical Sciences, IISER Kolkata, and Mr. Sanjib Kothari, Chairman, MCCI MSME Council. The moderator of this session is Dr. Ganesh Kakandikar, Associate Head of the School of Mechanical Engineering, MIT World Peace University. Before formally handing over the session to Dr. Kakandikar, I have a request for all the participants. Kindly type all your questions in the chat section provided, and once the session progresses, each of the questions will be taken accordingly. I shall now hand over the stage to Dr. Ganesh Kakandikar. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, all respected panelists. Thank you, Janika, for handing over the session to me. It's my pleasure to moderate the session, and the topic of the session is very interesting. Challenges in implementing high quality R&D in India, and I hope we will have a good discussion over this, and the outcomes will be very beneficial for the society as well as India. And definitely we can contribute to the Make in India aspect. So it's my great pleasure to introduce the dignitaries, those have here as a panelist. So we have with us Dr. Ayan Banerjee, who is Professor of Physics at Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, Kolkata. He is working in the field of optics and spectroscopy for the last 24 years. A scientist, but also involved in professional Bengali and English theatre in the capacity of a playwright, director, and actor. PhD in Physics from Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru in Precision Atomic Spectroscopy. Following PhD, he was a research scientist at General Electric Global Research, Bangalore, India, where he established a precision optics lab that specialized in the development of spectroscopy, assisting sensing for large-scale deployment in security, pharma, healthcare, etc. Since 2009, he has been a faculty member in the Department of Physical Sciences at IISER Kolkata, and he is a hardcore researcher and well-known academician. I welcome you, sir. The second panelist with us is Mr. Sanjib Kothari, who is chairman of MCCI MSME Council. He is also past president of Indian Chemical Merchants and Manufacturers Association and currently chairman of ICMMA Infrastructure, a SPV of Chemical Cluster Project, jointly promoted by ICMMA and Government of West Bengal. He is also current chairman of MCCI MSME Council, by profession having family-owned chemical industry as well as manufacturing of home care and personal care products. He is also importer and exporter of fine and specialty chemicals and spices. So he's basically an industry professional who can also contribute for industry academia partnership. The third dignitary we have is Mr. G. Chandrashekhar, who is economic advisor. He's a senior journalist, ex-associate editor, Hindu Business Line. He is a global agro-business and commodities market specialist and serve as an independent member, SEBI Commodity Derivatives Advisory Committee. He provides policy inputs for the government mainly through his columns in the Hindu Business Line newspaper and appearance on business televisions. He is on board with various government key panels for development issues. He speaks on a wide range of topics, including macroeconomy, food and nutrition security, commodity, market outlook, and related topics. And he is also a trainer for the students on various topics. I welcome all of you. I would request Dr. Banerjee to start with for his opening remarks on the topic challenges in implementing high quality R&D in India for 5 minutes. Once we have the opening remarks from all the panelists, then we will move on to panel discussion and question and answers.
Yeah.
Dr. Banerjee, please.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Kakandikar, and thanks to, I mean, this is a great initiative. Being an academician, I have always, felt the deep necessity of such connections with industry because that's a big shortcoming of ours. And I think MIT World Peace is doing a great job in arranging this, and thanks to IMC as well. This is really, really something that is the first thing that I want to say because,
Thank you.
what we really want at the moment is a very, very true connect between academia and industry. That is a completely win-win thing because you will actually get scope of disseminating research, translating research, and as well as I was seeing the videos which are pretty nicely done. And what was being said was that there is a definite deficiency that we have in actually manufacturing or coming up with technology. I mean, we are mostly still a country which is dealing with service. That is not what should happen. If you really want to come in the forefront, what is required is that we have to actually create technology, and that cannot come without research. So that is a very, very big requirement. And if you just talk about it in a quantitative manner, uh, I think it was flashed in one of the videos, the first video of the amount of, so research needs funding, right? That is the first big requirement. We do not at the moment spend too much on funding yet. It's like, 0.7 to 0.8%, I guess, of GDP. And it's a bit unfortunate that it was probably a bit higher in the last decade. It's slightly come down, but I think it's going to pick up again, which is very much required. And this COVID, pandemic has actually shown, I think, the importance of, research really coming into the aid of whole humanity. So that is a must. That is, of course, something that we cannot influence from here. But what we have to think of is how we can use this funding to its, ultimate, capability, or what one can achieve with this. So I basically think that there are two components. There is research, there is development. These are not the same things at all. So while it is important that research with outcomes is of course very crucial. In fact, I do not think that any research cannot have outcomes. See, because if you actually do research and do not come with outcomes, it basically means that you're making a mistake. And if you make a mistake, finally, that is what tells you what you should not do in order to get something meaningful. So mistakes really teach us what is to be done, right? So outcomes will be there. Lack of outcomes is probably telling you what not to do. That is what I want to say is that blue sky research is something that we cannot forget. That is important. We have to remember that something which has changed the world, the country. I mean, the times that we live in. The big sort of revolution that has happened is the internet, and the internet was born at CERN. That is the Center for High Energy Research. That probably does things which have nothing to do with the way you and I live and anybody lives. However, so and people might ask why or not. What is that helping in the life of the common man? Internet was something that people at CERN used to communicate with each other. That was just an intra-CERN protocol, and that came out that just changed the world. That was so very critical. But then what was important, however, is that spirit, that openness, that even if you're doing extremely high-end, so-called academic research, the same code that you are using to run maybe a high energy simulation or a goodness matter or soft whatever very sort of high-end molecular dynamics code, that same code can be tweaked in order to make maybe a good distribution system, something which is very useful to the common man. And that is where I think scientists who are like us, who are in academia, and why, I mean, being in academia, see, I have seen in industry as well, and I realize that it is very different to do research in lab and research in to get products. It's very different. But what I see in what I've seen in both industry and academia is, in academia somehow people are content with making papers and then probably forgetting about it. That is not good. I mean, you have to think of, finally, I myself feel that, finally we are sponsored by society. So there has to be something to come back. However, at the same time, you also, I mean, one of the reasons that one has to appreciate why this mindset is there among people in academia is that we are encouraged mostly to publish. You go for a, an internal promotion interview and you have just one paper because you are trying to develop a product, questions will be asked. Okay. And that mindset of doing things which might not lead to a fantastic set of papers, but which will do something which will help, a lot of other people around us who are not directly scientists, that still is not very much there. In the industry, it's the opposite. I was once asked by a pretty senior manager in GUS, why do you need to publish? It is complete junk. I mean, just do patents, forget about papers. That also is a problem because you need to, that is extremely crucial. So one of the big problems that we have in big high-end research and technology projects in India, I think if you just sort of try to go at it point by point, I think funds, of course, that is something which we cannot really compare here. However, one thing that I can tell you that what sort of maybe deters us, our scientists, to get big funds, 50, 60 crore funds, is that probably there is lack of nucleation. I mean, we do not have consortia of scientists in many disciplines of fundamental team and multi-institutional, 5, 6 institutes come up and you sort of come up and create knowledge. That is not there. One big problem is that the DST sector, which fund us, they do not have even scope for multiple PIs. There's only one PI and then you have co-PIs. So that is something which deters you from, real solid collaboration. You're asked in promotion interviews, what is your contribution? There's a paper with 5, people who are professors. You are asked, can you specify exactly what you did? That is not useful. You have to come together, share stuff, come up and do, and really create knowledge. The other part is, when you want to disseminate research, again, I think the topic, since it is, how one can actually, implement high-end research. Research, if you do not disseminate properly, is research not done. And there are two things here. We as scientists, we do not attend conferences, etc., to the same level that our colleagues in the West do. And what happens in conferences, editors by name, know them by face. You sit on a dinner table, you drink coffee, whatever, and then you talk about your next paper. By the time you're halfway in, for us, there is a big element of distrust yet. We cannot travel. Of course, now with this online thingy, that probably is a blessing in disguise. Of course, COVID is horrible, but the fact that we have all closed things, that may be useful. Okay. Other thing else that is very important is that I think many of our colleagues still are, I mean, this is a general thing, they're not great communicators. This is a fact. Our students are even worse. I mean, I often feel sort of, uh, I just cannot write the number of papers that I want to, because every single paper that I have to write for my students, I have to write from top to bottom, because they cannot write proper English. And when they go to talk in conferences, many of them are, they have not studied English as first language, which is not a problem. I mean, you don't need to have a great accent, but you need to be able to talk so that everybody understands. I mean, the Chinese, Italians, Russians speak horrible English, but they are not, they do not have any complex about that. They go out and speak and they understand. Okay, and that has to be done. So scientists, researchers have to be taught to communicate. Maybe, there was this thing of faculty training programs, which is, I think, extremely important. People have to forget about their egos, come out and talk, disseminate their research, be forced to do public speaking, go to villages, schools and whatever, because finally you're getting a lot of money from society. I think that is a big problem in dissemination. Okay. So I think this is, this is 5
we will
minutes.
talk about hurdles also, sir, during question and answers. We will also talk about the hurdles and how we are going to overcome them. Kothari, sir, you represent industry and also you head most of the professional organization in one strata of industry. So I invite you for your opening remarks for 5 minutes on the challenges in implementing high-end R&D. Kothari, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kakandikar, and good afternoon to you all. Since I am associated mostly with the MSMEs, because of my position there in the council. So let me elaborate more on MSMEs, because MSMEs is a very vital sector of the economy today in India. And MSMEs are such sectors which really require some kind of handholding. And when it comes to the R&D sector, it is the most important part. Innovation is universally accepted as a catalyst to growth and must be fostered by MSMEs too. But at the same time, innovative ideas need the support of the government, which can play a key role in facilitating linkage between the MSME clusters and R&D institutes. As Dr. Banerjee was saying, that the academia has to have some linkage with the industry as well, so that though both grow together. And we face the real challenge in that, because MSMEs doesn't have the kind of resources they can spend on R&D. The spend is too low, too meager. And unfortunately, we don't have the facilities like what it prevails in US and European countries. So I should say that many opportunities exist to carry out R&D in India now for small and medium enterprises to a certain extent, and academic institutions, not only for the domestic, but also for the international companies which comes to India to set up their plants. But according to me, there are some factors which can boost these opportunities. First of all, the most important factor which is required is some kind of handholding by big corporates. Second is by support from the government. And third one is, when MSME comes into clusters, then perhaps they can have a separate R&D institute of their own in the cluster itself, so that it can improvise and build up the technology required for that particular cluster. So which can help in growth of the MSMEs, as well compete globally in every respect, especially in the technological advances. I think with this opening remark, I complete my opening remark and look forward to more interactions now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your remarks on MSME sector. We will also see that why we always need to have big corporates when it comes to the R&D. We can take it into MSME because we had a greater portion of MSME structures.
Yes, yes.
Chandrashekhar sir, you see both these systems, academia and industry, from a third perspective. So what are your opening remarks on both these institutions and their collaboration, their roles?
For last few decades, I've been talking about the fact that quality is a state of mind. Excellence is a state of mind. Similarly, research is actually a mindset. And therefore, that inquisitiveness to engage in research, come up with new products, experiment, we must start inculcating from school education itself. A lot of us, many of us actually go into, we graduate, do whatever discipline we choose, and we get a job, and then we of course start looking at opportunities, how to improve, how to advance in career, etc. But that is one part. Research has become completely incidental in the lives of many people. My strong belief is that research orientation, the research bent of mind, that inquisitiveness to find something new should actually be inculcated from childhood, from the school level. This is one, which is completely absent in our country, most unfortunately. But I'm sure there is a new awakening there. People are now realizing the importance of this. But when we come to the corporate side, whether it is large corporations or MSME, again, we are actually are in an expansionary state, in the sense India is an economy, an emerging economy, which has been expanding and will continue to expand over the next 15, 20, 25 years. And what we have found over the last, say, 20, 30 years is there is hardly any competition in any of the products or any of the services. That competition is just about beginning to rear its head in a wide range of products and services. And once you have competition, the market becomes competitive. Every supplier of a product, every provider of a service starts to fight for market share, then he becomes innovative. He then starts to realize the importance of innovation. It starts to realize the importance of research, product research, market research. And of course, starts to realize the importance of developing new products that meet mindset that is not allowed independent research, out of the box thinking to prosper. But things are changing now, which is very positive. The first point. The second point I want to mention is we need three kinds of resources for success in research. We need three kinds of resources. One is, of course, the human resource. A human resource, a human mind with a huge amount of inquisitiveness, huge amount of passion to do something different, something new, something that meets the needs of the market. Human resources. Second, we need financial resources. And unfortunately, financial resources are also to a large extent lacking, both from the point of view of public spending by the governments, whether it's the state government or the central government. And because public investment in research is not really high, the incentive for private investment to come into research is also not very high. The incentive is much less. Or we need to step up public investment in research. And therefore, second is the financial aspect. Third is, of course, the technological aspect. We need infrastructure. When I say technological aspect, technological resource, I'm primarily talking about both solid infrastructure and soft infrastructure. Solid infrastructure would obviously mean various laboratories and those kinds of infrastructure facilities. And the soft infrastructure would actually mean collecting data, analyzing data, disseminating data, sharing data, as Dr. Banerjee pointed out. That's extremely difficult. It is likely that half a dozen institutions across India are researching the same subject, but they don't know who's doing what. And then therefore we need to collaborate. That is why we need a strong research industry interface in our country. Again, I mean, pardon me saying it's lacking, because I've worked with a very large, or I'm connected to a very large number of industries, a large variety of industries. And when you talk about research or academia industry interface, it's extremely limited. People are now beginning to realize that corporates should start funding academics and academic research, etc. Therefore, for example, if agriculture is my favorite topic, agriculture, agribusiness, how many agriculture universities and students of agribusiness in these universities are engaged by corporates to research new products, new processes, or new ways of cultivation, or water management, or pesticide management, whatever. I think our spend there is much less. This is primarily because our economy has been an economy of shortage, economy of it has been a seller's market. When it becomes a buyer's market, the sellers of the products, the providers of service will realize how important research is, and they will start spending more and more money. We have reasonably good human resources in our country, but they'll probably need handholding. They'll need financial support. I always talked about just one moment. I always tell my students wherever I go to deliver lectures, say you must follow what I call the Sai Baba principle. What is Sai Baba principle? When you go to a Sai Baba temple, you will find two words: Shraddha, Saburi. Shraddha is commitment. You need to stay committed to your cause. pure research. And saburi is patience. Life is not an instant coffee machine. यार 5 रुपया डालो, button दबाओ, यहाँ coffee निकलता है कप में. Life doesn't, research doesn't work that way. Research takes time. And therefore, while you have to stay committed to your cause of research, you also need to wait for results. And therefore, Shraddha and Saburi must actually become the watchword for researchers and for all those. But I think with this, I'll stop here. But we'll go on to the questions.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, there is so much to talk.
Yeah.
There is so much to talk in this area. But let's move forward.
Definitely, sir. We will have deliberations, more deliberations on different aspects of this. If you see Indian scenario, the research at individual level is yet to reach the desired quality standards. But as compared to that, institutional research and development, on the other hand, has successfully powered organizations to excel beyond expectations in India. And the best example what we can talk about is ISRO. The success of ISRO, it has made all the world to be surprising when they launched record-breaking 104 nano satellites along with the 714 kg satellite for Earth observations into orbit from a single rocket. The stellar performance of ISRO has been well supported and assisted by government initiatives in its imperative that government inspire and encourage this quality of institutional R&D to percolate it to individual level so that the same excellence can be replicated amongst individual as well. So my first questions to Dr. Banerjee is that quality of faculty and the research and development as a culture which needs to be backed by the contribution from the government as well as from the industry. So, sir, do we need to develop this ecosystem, and how we can overcome the challenges that what we are facing right now in establishing this ecosystem? Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, so this is the question to ask, right? This is
Yes.
the question.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, without this ecosystem, we will go nowhere as a nation, right? I mean, this, if you really want to become as one of the forerunners in, human civilization at the moment, we have to be a country which is developing technology and not selling services. That is a must. Now, the problem there are manifold problems, right? I mean, we had this, strata of people who were well educated, very, very well educated, but who did not have the means to reach the career goals that they had for themselves. So, abroad, America and the West gave them those options, and they migrated there. That is just continuing, right? We are not being able to stop that at all. I mean, you will not, I as a faculty, in IISER Kolkata, we get so completely frustrated when, we have this 5-year BSMS program, right? You enter as an undergrad and then you finish your master's and leave. All of them, 90% of the students and almost every good student, they leave for some place abroad. So we teach them, we make them into good, solid, capable researchers with a lot of promise, and they go and deliver there. Same for PhDs, right? I had a student, one of my best students. So he came from a rural region in Bengal. He was absolutely like clay. 5 years later, he is a really, really good researcher. Yeah, he is. And of course, he's in a postdoctoral position abroad. And he's writing very good papers. He's doing well. What am I getting, right? When he was nothing, we sort of tempered him. We gave whatever, he nurtured in the lab. But then once he's a product, he's going there and he's getting them to do very good papers and whatever. So somehow there has to be a system which gives this opportunity, which a promise of a good career if you stay back in India. So this PM NRF that has started, right? Prime Minister's National Research Fellowship. So they give a lot of money for doing a PhD in India. So that is a good scheme towards that. So you see that the one that is existing, the norm is to do a PhD in the West. In order to break that, you have to give something bigger. So that has to be, it is, and it doesn't need to go forever. For 5 years, you give big incentives in doing stuff here. And then when the tradition is set, then you sort of see that you will not need to do that. People will know that it is already there. That is one. See, the best people that we have are never part of the Indian research scenario, almost never. One is that, and once, I mean, there are, of course, one advantage that we have in science is that even these kids who do PhDs and postdocs outside, abroad, getting jobs abroad is not so easy. It's not like engineering or IITs, like you get a job very like that. They want people like this. That's not so. It's not very easy for them to get jobs outside doing science. But then still, are we giving enough opportunities for these people to come as faculties in India and do what they want to do? That is very critical. You have to allow them to do what you want, what they want. If you say that I'm going to give funding only in areas A, B, C, D, if you are in part of this, you do, otherwise, please forget it. People are not going to come back, right? Some, you, of course, I mean, for an underdeveloped country where people still, there's a big hunger problem. I'm not expecting that everybody will, you pump in a lot of money and expect people to do stuff which is not used. I mean, that way has absolutely no relevance to society at all. That is another extreme. But something you have to be in the middle, that if you have talented individuals who are willing to come back, and many of them do want to come back, I'll tell you. Problem is we do not have enough elite institutions where they will not be able to further on their careers. And now if you are going to sort of tune funding into some very selective areas of research, that is going to be even worse. And the third thing that I want to tell you is that industry, I think Dr. Chandrashekhar gave an excellent thing of that, and I have a personal experience to share. So I've been in GE, so I have seen that other world, and I know what it is. My feet are firmly planted on the ground, and though I do research presently, where again, as I said, in the Indian scenario, if you do not publish papers, your career is as good as done. You will remain an assistant professor all your life. Okay, your students will go nowhere. They will not get PhDs also.
Yeah.
So that is okay. So I'll tell you. So obviously, the first 5-6 years of my career at ISER, I did nothing but publish. Okay, forget about any kind of product thinking also, right? You have to get, because I didn't do a postdoc, right? My career was in GE. I was completely cut off from academia. I had lobby, do everything from scratch, and that was very problematic because we do not have a good nexus with the West. There is an element of distrust. At the moment, I'm 10 years into this field, 12 years almost. I still have a paper which is under review where 8 reviewers have reviewed. 8, that is unthinkable. There is an element of, so whatever. So what I'm trying to say is that when so academia is a big challenge for us because still there is a distrust that people doing experimental work from India, are they really good? Whatever. Second thing is, so what I wanted to say, my personal narrative. So just a few years, I think a couple of years back, when I was kind of settled, I had become a professor. I have this friend of mine who has several, he's a big, good entrepreneur. He has 3-4 companies, and he came to me with a problem. He wanted a certain solution. I got an MS student. So we are in ISER, right? We have a whole, world of very talented BSMS students who are very interested in doing things before they leave, of course. Then, so I got this student of mine who was in my lab. In a month, we got a solution. Oh, month or whatever, 1.5, 2 months, I got a solution. But then I told him to see if this is there. He said, okay, yeah, good. Let us sign an MOU, whatever. And I could see that he was sort of getting a bit reticent. I probed him, nothing after 6 months. Then complete stop communication. Just before the pandemic struck, we had a conference, we met him. I invited him to ISER. Then I asked him what was wrong, what happened. So what he said was, of course, as an entrepreneur, he did not just come to me. He went to various people. And he went abroad as well. He went to the UK. And so he said that there is actually these set of liaison people in the UK who are paid to find out a nexus, to set up a nexus between the industry's needs and academia. They are paid to do that. That is their job. So when he went there, he had 6 alternatives. And they were developing that thing for him at no cost, 0 cost. because they wanted a starting thing. Here, you want to, if I had to do something for it, we first need an MOU. After that, MOU will take a month because different departments of IT, then we have to come with a document, its legality has to be checked, all kinds of things, how much money we need to pay each other, who gets the IP. It is a mess, I can tell you still. Okay, there he got this liaison group. In a week, they gave him 5 options and he got the solution. And now, it would take a world for him to come back to us because he knows that, he wants profit finally, right? Of course, here I do believe that, there has to be an element of magnanimity as well, right? I mean, we are finally Indians. We need this country to develop, and it's okay. I mean, everybody has to do their bit. So, of course, he took a shortcut because it was beneficial for him. But also, very, very importantly, we lack this kind of quantitative support where you have a fixed team who are paid as liaison, database of every institution, every good place, that is capabilities. They know people personally, they know industry. It's a whole hell lot of hard work, but it is there, and that makes life so much simpler for us. So conclaves are very useful. These are starting points, but quantitative action is the need of the day.
We also have complexities of the systems, our complexities of the systems too, when we
very, very badly.
Research, isn't it? It's not so easy for even a professor to do a research.
So see, funding, one thing, Ganesh, so you basically just think of it as startup funding, when a scientist starts up, seed funding, starts his lab, at the US. That is typically at the scale of $500K to $1 million. In my life as a PI, whatever I do, you think I'll get 7 crores as an individual funding? Never. Now, never. I mean, we are promised 2.5 crores and we get 1 crore without even being, and we are not told that, okay, you're going to get, this is the problem, please revisit, you revise your project. No, I submit a proposal and I'm congratulated that great, there are 3,000 applicants or 10,000. You are one of the winners, take 1 crore. Okay. And I had asked for 2.5. And I have not given an opportunity to change my project plan, right? The deliverables remain the same, but the funding is cut to 40%.
We need to face this. Industry looks towards academia when this ecosystem comes to, in place, because we are talking about industry and academia collaboration for many years. What are expectations of industry basically from academia? Because now I could see that industry is quite open to academia. We are hand holding, but what more things industry expects from academia?
Is that especially for the big corporates, the CSR funding should be allowed to be spent for R&D in a big way, so that real fund and real process starts in a proper way, and it will really help the other industries in down the stream, right from MSMEs and smaller, the cottage industries type, because those people don't have the approach for or funding for resources for that kind of R&D. But yes, 100%, 100%, I agree with Dr. Banerjee that academia is far more neglected in R&D, and I really foresee that industry sector come hand in hand with the academia to build up R&D centers jointly or have some kind of internal support so that it can grow in a bigger way.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. I'm coming to you only, Chandrashekhar, sir.
Let me respond to this very question, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, sir.
I'll tell you, I am associated with a wide variety of industries, okay? And with due respect to everybody, I want to mention often most industry leaders, chairman, MD, CEO level leaders, have extremely limited understanding of what should be the research priority. I'm being very blunt. They have no idea where is that market going 5 years from now or 10 years from now. When a market is going somewhere in 5 years, I need to today start my research work to meet that need of the consumer 5 years from now. That outlook, that foresight, with due respect to everybody, is actually much limited in India. That is, again, as I'm saying, all the producers and manufacturers and sellers, they know whatever I produce will be consumed in this country, will be sold. We are an economy of shortage, at least until now, until recently. Competition is, of course, catching up. We had only 2 brands of cars in our country 30 years ago.
Yeah, it was
We had
manufactured.
only one telephone service provider, landline,
Yes.
20 years ago. Now, I mean, competition has changed, completely changed the landscape, and which is obviously resulted in much better service for the consumer. And therefore, I think the industries also, they need to start looking at the products that will be demanded by the consumers 5 to 10 years from now. The millennials, for example, their consumption pattern is completely different from, and obviously and the future is theirs, the millennials, and therefore you need to identify what they want. So this is one part. If you permit me, I just want to mention one more. And when we talk of research, we all the time talk about private research. There is also public sector research. A lot of work going on in the public sector. Research work is going on in the public sector. But in all those institutions, and many of these institutions, I have found, unfortunately, political interference. Believe me, I have an uncle, a very senior man. He was the first Indian to quit a United Nations job 35 years ago, okay, long years ago, to say that I want to come back, Shekhar, I want to come back to India and serve my motherland. And then he worked, and then he was heading the International Institute of Population Studies, Demographic Center in Bombay. And I know the kind of frustrations that he would face when he has to go and speak in a seminar abroad. He would not get any permission, or he would not get foreign exchange, or that permission would come 24 hours before his departure. I mean, he can't get a visa. He can't get this. I mean, all that. This is frustrating for researchers in India, particularly public sector researchers. That bureaucratic mindset of those who are in power and who have the authority to release money, that must change. And I suspect it has not changed enough in the last 30 years. This is my understanding. And when there is much less of public investment in research, then incentive for the private sector to spend money on research is much less. There is no encouragement at all. Same with agriculture. When we talk of agriculture, I keep saying step up public investment. Private investment will automatically come into the agriculture and agribusiness sector. I think there are a lot of mindset issues in our country which we need to identify and address. Thank you. Sorry.
My next question to you would be in line with this.
Just one line. Can I add to that?
Sure,
I really
please,
loved what
please.
what Mr. Chandrashekhar said. So see, basically what I felt is the industry in India is very afraid to take risks. Very afraid to take risks, in the sense that, abroad, it is known that if you invest in research, maybe only 99% of your funding will probably go down in the drain. But that 1%, if that works, that will be a game changer.
Yeah.
That will make you a leader forever. And that basically is something that I think, I know, obviously I don't have a company, but I know there are millions of insecurities. I think that is probably very much there. We don't have cushions. The cushions for failure are probably not there. But there, I would say, the big players, we have some very, very big players now, right? We have actually industries now who are in the top 20 in the Forbes list and all, right? They are humongous. They are as big as whoever is there in the West. So they still can afford to lose, right? If they win, there is no stopping them. So that thing is still very much there.
Yeah, I was coming to the Western world. technology flows from academia to industry, research flows from academia to industry, and we are talking about this for so many years in India also. So my question to Chandrashekhar sir is that, sir, are we on the right path? Do you see the changes in the industry and academia? And can we foresee that we will have same culture in coming days? Because if you see the research that is happening in India over last 20 years back down the line, as you said, that was basically a typical manufacturer's market, and now it's a consumer's market. So research is necessary, and we have only seen that whatever technology comes to us, it has come through only collaborations from foreign world only. We could not see that great amount of research is happening even in industry also. So we did it all with collaborations only. So are we in the right path with this ecosystem? And can you foresee somewhere on the timeline that we will also follow at least Western world for this one? What are your thoughts, sir?
Yes, yes, we are in the right path, but it's a very slow and painful trudge in the right path. We are the situation that obtained 30 years ago has substantially changed. There is no doubt. Companies are now beginning to believe, with opening up of the foreign direct investment. Most of the industries are now open to foreign investment. Competition is catching up, and therefore there is that survival instinct which is kicking in, and therefore producers, manufacturers of products, and providers of service realize if don't stay ahead, if their consumer needs be swept away by say foreign investment or newer players with brilliant ideas, and therefore it's changing. But that movement, the forward movement, is painfully slow. We need to further accelerate this. The only way in which this acceleration in that right path will take place is every industry must face increasing competition, whether that competition is domestic competition through domestic entities or foreign companies coming to India, investing in India. Competition alone is going to drive manufacturers, service providers to spend more on research, say 5 years, 10 years down the line, what the market would need, and that's, I think, is the way forward. Competition is a great what should I say, a booster dose for higher R&D spend in our economy, is what my belief is.
Thank you, sir. We also need to
So just one thing I'd like to add there. So I think one good step in this direction is the CSR. So CSR is some, so but then there's little catch here. I mean, CSR is an excellent initiative, but CSR engaged towards research, that, I mean, supporting research, that ecosystem, that culture is yet to come in very broadly. Okay, so we have an TBI at ISER, technology business incubator. We are struggling for funds and all. So we sort of talked to a big bank who were kind of interested, because they don't have, and that is the pity, they don't have the avenues to spend the CSR. Okay, they are wondering what to do because it's mandatory, and they're wondering what to do. But so we had talks, and we were very hopeful that they would give us a chunk. For them it's peanuts, for us it's a lot of money. But then it's not happened as yet. Okay, so they came in, we had a lot of talks, but I don't know where, somehow it has probably got lost. We're not winning. We desperately need whatever funding we want to get, we can get. And I don't think they are winning too, but somehow research is not a priority as yet. But there are avenues, however, where they can substantially fund research.
But one thing I like to add, sir.
Yeah.
But things are changing in a very, very wishful direction these days. And people are, the corporates are focusing on R&D spends for CSR. That CSR spends on R&D has increased a lot. If you look forward to certain industries here like Tata Group and Nirma Group, they have already spent up a lot of CSR spending on R&D. So this is a this is a very bright spot. And as you rightly said in your opening remark, that the certain kind of support and handholding with a what should I say, a base money from the government also needs to be there, so that they really give the boost of this kind of spending.
Sanjib sir, my next question to you only when
Yeah.
Sorry. Again, let me issue a rejoinder if you don't mind. I don't want to join issues, but
please, sir,
I'm not comfortable. I'm not very comfortable with part of the CSR fund being diverted for research,
Okay.
which will ultimately benefit the corporate in terms of its business and its turnover, etc. The very rationale of CSR, corporate social responsibility, is primarily social development. Okay, I'm not criticizing. Let people spend, but yet I would be more comfortable when this CSR fund, which I think they are about 20,000 crores, if I remember correctly, at the total CSR funds of various corporate, maybe 20 or 22,000 crores. That money is applied for actually social upliftment. You look at the Human Development Index of the United Nations. We are some 125 or 130 out of all those countries. We are so low. Look at the Global Hunger Index. We are among the top 1, 2, or 3. Our social development indicators are very, very poor, whether it is nutrition, child mortality, gender equality. I mean, all kinds of indicators. But the purpose of CSR is actually to advance social development rather than economic growth. For economic growth, you need to fund economic growth separately from your profits, and you need to invest. Whereas CSR is more and more, in my view, again, that's the rationale I give to CSR for social development. But in the process, if a part of the CSR money is going to be spent to support students, for example, students who are keen to do research, and if the benefit of that research is going to flow to the corporate in some measure, then the corporate must have that ethical standing to even flow back a part of that profit that they get out of this CSR spend back into the CSR system.
Yeah, I think
I don't know
excellent,
how
very
many
nice
will do
views.
it, but
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very, very interesting discussion. I think one thing I'd like to point out to Chandrashekhar, see, 22,000 crores, if we get 100 crores out of that, man, what is it? It's nothing. But for us researchers, that is unthinkable money.
Yeah.
At the same point, at the same thing, I mean, the same vein, it is very correct that this should not be an avenue for them to generate profit. They should not try to garner profit out of that. I mean, see, one big issue here, I think it's a very good point, is that corporates fund in India, corporates fund only on the getting something back, IP, either you will split hairs over IP, or how much share. If there's a startup, then how much of the shares they will get. All kinds of, they really split hairs over that. So here, however, if you are just donating for the sake of research only, they are not greedy about IP. They are not. They allow us to do some biosensing thing, which is going to help society, right? If I can devise an antibody sensing mechanism for COVID, it's going to be hugely beneficial for society. But of course, if then they split hairs that if you have a startup, then uska 15% I will get, or if you have an IP, you have to share with me. That makes the bureaucracy difficult. That makes all kinds of things. Then that magnanimity, which should be associated with CSR, just vanishes.
That will develop a new system for corporate itself. As Shekhar said, that will develop a new system. Earning more money from CSR only, it will directly go to them instead of going to the society. Right?
Correct. So those things have to be. So if you spend, I think some regulations can also be there. If you spend CSR on research, you should not expect that you will split hairs over IP. or you will
Exactly.
say that I need this
And
amount of
even if
stock.
they expect
You know,
certain amount of return on their money, I think that's not bad, but there should be some brainstorming that should
no,
happen.
that CSR should not be that,
Yes.
right? Because
Right.
CSR should not be, see, because they cannot spend.
Yeah.
That is what I've seen. They are unable to spend.
Yes.
And again, see, because as I think again what Chandrasekhar said was very correct. So the problem is societally, we are still closed to science.
Yeah.
We do not have a scientist mindset in India. I think in
Correct,
99% of people, even if they're very educated, I mean, they may have
Although,
a lot of degrees after their names.
al-
Okay, but
although
so
Nehru said
that is a
60,
huge
70
issue.
years ago, scientific temper, etc., etc.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
sorry,
Scientific
please go ahead.
temper. It is still in name, no. So that is such a pity. I mean, it is
Yes.
unthinkable.
Sanjib sir, my question to you is that when we talk about support from industry, basically we talk about big corporates. Okay, funding in terms of CSR, maybe funding for project or research to the academia. How MSME is coming? How MSME is trying to change the setup of the mind in academia, because every time research need not to be very path breaking, or it should not be a breakthrough. Even small problems of industry, day-to-day problems of industry can be solved by local academia, which can turn into good outcomes. So how MSME is coming to that? What are the aspirations of MSME in these directions?
So first of all, let me add a rejoinder to what Dr. Banerjee and Dr. Chandrasekhar was speaking out. The CSR activities, CSR funding, if it can be limited, say textile industry is funding for a research on mobile phones, it doesn't have a direct impact on their business, is it not? So that kind of limitation can be imposed so that the CSR funding, but as rightly pointed out by Dr. Banerjee, when there is a funding of 20,000 crores and a small amount of money flows into the CSR activities in the R&D, then definitely it makes a big difference. So having said that, now coming back to the, how MSME aspires to get the R&D, first of all, as I said in my opening remark, the cluster development is one of the avenue where, single MSME cannot have that kind of resources or ability to go for research.
Yeah.
Agreed. But when you develop a cluster, say a cluster of chemical industry, a cluster of textile industry, a cluster of home care industries, then perhaps that cluster can build up an R&D center and have a direct interaction with the academia to really build up that kind of R&D which is required and which is being foreseen in coming years. So one is that aspect. The other aspect is, again, coming back from the, we see a lot of funding being moved through the banks to MSMEs by the government. In the recent COVID times also, large amount of fund has been, given as a special loan at a very reasonable rate of interest with a guarantee, counter guarantee from the government. So if that kind of funding is counter guaranteed by government and made available for the MSMEs exclusively for the R&D, then perhaps our MSMEs can grow in a bigger and much better way and be very competitive to the international market.
Thank you, sir. As an academia,
one sec. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, if you don't mind, let me.
No.
Because Sanjib Kothari triggered another thought. That thought process, he talked about cluster, which is very, very important. We need to have clustered approach. There is now a new thinking within the government of India, which is called one district, one product, ODOP.
Yes.
There are 600 and odd districts in India, 624 or whatever, that number, so many districts. They want to identify for each district at least one product.
Yes.
And they want to develop that product to world class, world scale and production and quality. And therefore, in fact, I wrote a few days ago a short research paper on one district, one product, what are the requisites, etc., etc. Therefore, I think even there, one district, one product is such a brilliant idea, because you look at this country, the diversity, agroclimatic conditions, the cultural diversity, the culinary diversity, the diversity of clothing. I think it's completely, and it's so beautiful. It's such a color across India. Therefore, this cluster approach can further be fine-tuned as one district in each district. Some near or educational institutions, say an agriculture university, can work very closely with those district authorities and the small MSMEs and SMEs in that region, for example, in food processing, and identify whether the opportunities, what kind of value addition is possible, what kind of shelf life extension is possible, what new packaging is possible, and all these are research opportunities. And therefore, that is where I would think research institutions, educational institutions like agriculture universities and the manufacturing or the industry can actually come together and work together. I think we are slowly, the government is creating, attempting to create an ecosystem, which is certainly encouraging for an academia industry collaboration, academia industry interface. But I think we are trudging on that path very slowly.
Very
We need to
slowly.
actually
Yeah, so I have a point to add to what
pardon my over enthusiasm. I'm sorry about this.
Yeah, because no, you've just hit up, you have said something which is right on the money for me, because see, Aizer Kolkata is actually, it's not situated in Kolkata. It's about 50 kilometers away from Kolkata. It's in this semi-rural place in Bengal, okay? And taken, constructed out of land taken from Asia's largest agricultural university. This is the Bidhan Chandra Krishi Vishwavidyalaya, BCKV it's called. It was made in the 60s with a huge amount of hope, and believe it or not, it is so completely dormant now. It's the biggest in Asia, can you believe it? It has it has a fisheries section, it has an animal husbandry section. They have this special thing where they call it bull mother. Okay, so they do artificial insemination for cows, and basically at one point of time they produced milk which I drank as a child. That has almost stopped. Okay, that Haringata milk, it used to be called. I grew up in Calcutta. It used to come to that milk, but then somehow they fell into a limbo in the, I would say, in the late 80s and 90s. I mean, 5 years from when we moved in, they were almost asleep. Okay, the animal husbandry, fisheries, nothing was happening. And yet there is so much scope, because they are in the middle of this semi-rural urban. Innovation is there in every household probably. It has to be tapped. Fortunately now, after the government change in Bengal and all, some, dust was shaken off. They repainted their buildings and all. So now we are also trying, desperately trying to get into some sort of touch with them and try to, invigorate them into, some kind of robust, action, because they have all the wherewithal. They have the knowledge, they have the people, but somehow that drive was gone. All facilities.
I think
right?
that depends on the leadership. Primarily, yeah, right.
Completely.
Right.
I mean,
if you
believe it or
have
not, Chandrasekhar, they had ice cream
things will
when
work.
I came in.
Yes, sir. As Shekhar said the things, I think they have started moving into right direction. Government has started doing these things, but we still need more collaboration. Sir, let us come to academia now. My next question to Dr. Banerjee. We are divided into clusters. We are divided into segments. We are central universities, we are IITs, NITs, ICERs. Those are fully funded by Government of India. And then we have very good private institutions like BITS Pilani, Thapar Institute, SRM University. And there are those who are coming, trying to do, there are institutions like MIT, we are here for 30 years in Pune, one of the best institutions in Maharashtra. But we were undergraduate institutions. Recently, we got converted to university. So we are also divided into segments. As Kothari sir said that MSME is coming together and developing a cluster. Is there any need that academia should also collaborate and develop a cluster?
I mean, I mean, this is what I started my thing with, right? I mean, that is an absolute must. See, what I
We are
stated
divided, so
in one of
how
my,
we can talk with industry? Even academia is divided. So is there necessity to
yeah,
develop an ecosystem wherein a professor from ICER like you can handhold a professor like me from other institutions and we
completely,
can propose a research to
completely.
the industry?
No, see, because that is the biggest shortcoming. See, I think I stated in my opening remarks that the reason that we do not get multi-million dollar, see, because finally we should, in the global standard, dollar is the gold
Yeah,
standard, right?
yeah, yeah.
So we do not get multi-million dollar projects because I mean, and then I can't really crib too much because we have a big hunger index, right? So saying that I want funds of millions of dollars is probably not fine. It's not morally just for me entirely. I mean, I think there is a trade-off that, if you want to get up there, there has to be some funding. In fact, there is a very interesting graph that I once saw in a colleague of mine shared in a lecture at ISER. So he was looking at the amount of funding that developed nations have put into science over the last probably 80 years or something like that, in most of the 20 after the Second World War. And you could see that all the developed nations, the West nations, US, uh, European countries, everybody at some point of time of 10 years, they had spent like 6% of GDP or even more. That's part of huge activity. And then things sort of saturated and things came into order. There was this autopilot mode, you can say, and then they kind of tapered off. I mean, the government didn't have to fund. I mean, people came up to fund. Amounts of funding did not come down. There were just more and more avenues. That spate of funding we have not yet done in India. Okay, I mean that we are 3 times lesser than China almost. China is 2%, South Korea is 4%, more than 4%, much lower than that. But then obviously there are lots of, it's a very complex problem. But one way that you can work meaningfully and deliver meaningfully as well is if you have these consortia of academic expertise. That is absolutely a must. It's not that things have not happened. At the moment, there is this quantum science initiative where a lot of funding is being pumped in. There is also, IISc Bangalore has a lot of stuff. Nanoscience, the nanoscience mission is there. They're also doing this quantum sciences initiative. All that is very much there. Funding is also being obtained. But what happened as a reality after that is, however, that that spreading of uh, that roping in of diverse minds, that still I think has not happened that much. I mean, I did my PhD in ISC. I have a lot of friends there. I can sort of, they come to me, I can go to them anytime. It's not a problem. However, there is sort of strata difference, I mean, it's bad to say, but if I'm very brutally frank, there is a caste system, very strict caste system in the Indian academia. Very, very strict. And very little interaction between them.
I completely agree.
Very little interaction, right? I mean, I don't talk to people like you so much, right? I mean, I know many of my colleagues look down upon central universities. And there is also a lot of, and that is so terrible, right? Because all some 10 institutes who are doing good work will take the country nowhere. It is not possible for this large country, if it has to fulfill its entitlement, it cannot hang on to 5 or 10 elite research institutions. It cannot. I mean, look at university. In fact, see, the reason that we cannot really go to a tenure track sort of, this is a different topic, but I think it's important because, one thing that comes in academia quite a bit is complacency. Okay, once you get, I can tell you, I mean, when I joined ISER, I had a 1-year contractual period or something. It was called something, I forgot what the name was. So there, if I didn't beat up the director, I was confirmed. Okay, it was trivial. I mean, that nobody cared. I mean, this was nothing. Unless you had a severe problem, you were always confirmed. That once you are confirmed, you are unshakable.
Yeah,
Nothing, you don't do anything for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
Nothing happens.
absolutely.
The thing
The
is that,
government job.
there are some
Government
misers.
job. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Because then what is there left, right? I mean, maybe promotions. Okay, you work hard, you do make some for. For me, I can tell. I become a professor. I can just do nothing now. Nobody can touch me, right? It's my drive, of course. I cannot stay with the whatever. That's a different question. But I'll tell you, the opposite to that, what we have in the West is tenure. It's a
Yeah,
tenure system, and that is a hell of a thing. I mean, you don't perform, you perish. Some institutes in India, elites also, they have started tenure. There is a big catch there, however. In the US and other places, if you are unsuccessful in for to get tenure in a big university, there are hundreds of good places where you can fall back to, where they will surely take you. I mean, somebody who is not given a tenure at Stanford will get it like this in Texas, Arlington. Nothing, no question. They will straight get in. We don't have that. You don't get something in, after 5 6 years, you're out of either something, Pune or Kolkata. You will have nowhere to go. I mean, if you go to a college, you are deemed as a failure to yourself. So this consortia is necessary desperately and in all directions. See, because this is part of the ecosystem, right? We need to grow an ecosystem where everybody participates,
yeah,
where there
yeah,
is that caste system has to be broken.
yeah.
Socially, we have got rid of it to a lot of extent, large extent, and not completely to the satisfaction that we would really like, but certainly to an extent we have broken it, to a pretty large extent. Academia that has to break, and the solution is to create consortia.
Yes. Shekhar sir, I had one more questions to you. If you see Indian scenario, the proportion of private institutions to the government institutions, it's very high. We opted that strategy somewhere in 1980s to allow private institutions because for this larger country, it was difficult for government to handle education
Right.
sector.
True. True.
But when it comes to funding from government right now, also it's quite difficult for private universities to get the funding. Like as sir said, there is a distrust from Western
Yeah.
or Indian academia. Similarly, the same
Right.
thing happens
Right.
with the central government
Right.
agencies. There is a
Right.
distrust with private universities that they don't want to fund because they don't want to justify. Once they fund it to IIT or ICER, no one will ask them the question why you are funded. But they fund to somebody other. Somebody can raise a question why you are funding there. So do we need to change that mindset and how we can overcome that?
Absolutely.
Shekhar sir.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt at all. After all, research, whether it is done in a private institution or a government institution, is going to the outcomes are going to help the society, are going to help the nation, right? And
Yeah.
then therefore, I'm sure the government of India or all of us together can find a system whereby there are adequate checks and balances on even private institutions uh, to uh, 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 for the government to fund the private universities and institutions for research with a definite timeline and constant monitoring and evaluation of the progress of the research work and with very specific outcomes, time bound outcomes. I think we don't have that system. In fact, often during budget time and even otherwise, I have talked about this every year. There is a budgetary outlay for every economic activity in our country. But I would also want to have not only the budgetary outlay, but I want to know what is the outcome report. What did you do last year? Where did you spend the money? And what is the outcome of that? I want an outcome report. I mean, these are things I speak, and therefore I think if we develop a fairly ironclad system uh, by which the government is able to fund private institutions, but with a definite timeline, definite purpose of objective of research, and with definite outcomes, I think it should still be possible. I don't know if people have tried, if private institutions have tried. I don't know. But I can see this as a very clear possibility of kickstarting that research mindset and accelerating our quest for more research within the country. After all, the public sector or government institutions, they are not holy cow that they should be supported. And nor can you say private sector institutions are profit oriented and therefore I will not touch them. That profit orientation, yes, it's there at some level, but the kind of scientific research that they would do and the ultimate benefit to the society at large is actually a public good, and therefore some public funding is certainly deserved, in my opinion, with appropriate checks and balances.
I have a question here. I don't know, maybe you guys can maybe, educate me. This NRF that is being created, right? The National Research Fund. I think that purpose is to fund mostly, central university and only universities. There is a bit of lack of clarity over this, but I think the main, goal there is to create a fund for central universities, state universities, and probably colleges, and I think even maybe private institutions. So it's not very clear. So is that correct? Do you have any idea about this?
No, I wouldn't know.
It is for the public institutes only.
Only public. But then what I recently read about it, there was an article in Nature where Vijay Raghavan was actually, he talked about it. So, but he specifically mentioned it is for the central universities and sort of state-funded colleges. So the elite so-called institutions might not be a part of it, though it's not known whether, the classic funding institutes that we have, DST and DBT, whether they would be a part of it or whether they would go. If the latter happens, I think that's a bit of a problem, because if you have a single funding agency, that makes, options severely restricted. So hopefully there will be some clarity on this soon.
What I suggest in one go, in case of, the dearth of funding, government can introduce a particular cess or any form in surcharge, cess or anything on GST, so that it can be used exclusively for the R&D all throughout the country. That will definitely boost the macro level and the micro level of the industry, and that will definitely help in getting the right quality, right form, and globally competitive also.
There is an education cess in the income tax we pay, right? Or
it is there.
Yeah, there is a cess. Yeah, true.
But that cess is for the secondary and the higher secondary education cess, and not for really for the R&D purpose. So that needs to be there.
Primarily, we need to step up private investment in R&D. That's very important. Therefore, it devolves on the large corporates primarily to spend more money.
I mean, there has to be a change in societal mindset. Unfortunately, it's harsh, but it's true. Just that you have to believe in science more, which unfortunately in our daily lives we don't.
So people believe now. In fact, most of the
it's better than before. Yeah, it's better than
much better than before. And people are really looking forward to some innovative products. If you see the case of Reliance, their product is world class now. And if you compare with their quality, it is definitely you can compare it with the best one either from US or Japan or anywhere else. They're the best. So similarly, there are many other products and many other companies which are producing the high quality products and quite competitive one also, where they are, China has initiated anti-dumping duty on certain Reliance product. So that's the reason that spills out, how competitive it can be.
But Mr. Kothari, do you feel that even Reliance, are they pumping in enough for research? I don't think, do they? Because I know in petrochemicals, there is huge funding, that I know. Yes. Because some of my colleagues in chemistry, they are the richest people around.
Yes.
But not in all.
Not enough. That's a very unfortunate part, that not enough funding is there, especially for the agricultural sector or even for the, the cottage industries. There are not enough funding for research. As Mr. Chandrashekhar was saying that, as government of India is now contemplating to develop one district, one product. this is being already followed in West Bengal. The government is, in a big way, as I am associated with these MSME institutes. So we go on, for developing the products for different districts in West Bengal. So similar
Also in
things
Uttar
must be
Pradesh. Also in Uttar Pradesh.
Yes, yes.
So one thing that I think we should bring up, I think Dr. Kakandikar is joining back with some hitch or something. I think one important fact that we have not discussed till now is the IP. So patenting. So that, see, as an academician, I have faced severe issues because a patent, in order to, industry knows patents, right?
Yes.
Problem is, if I want to approach industry with something that I've done, I want to my end, there is a lot of problems about. There are a lot of problems about the fund.
Yes.
In the sense, when we ask money from DST or SARB or whoever, they don't give you separate money for patenting. And see, we have to beg and borrow to our own institutes, from our own institutes, in order to file patents. And there is, of course, no question of filing international patents. No question, because that is too much expensive. They don't have money. Okay, the Indian patents, of course, are much cheaper, but in effect, they are actually not of too much of use, right? Because it's only freedom to practice in India, not abroad. Anybody can copy your idea abroad. I mean, and just do it. You will just say nothing. You can do anything. So we do not have a clear vision in how to promote the creation of IP, generation of IP, and the protection and the filing. Because unless you can file, world patents and all, which have to be, and then again corporate can come in. So there is a big problem in the government support, because it's not clear. I asked money from SERB for patenting. They did not give anything. They gave a very small amount for contingencies, and that is not even one patent. Okay, yes. I mean international patent, not even one. Yeah. So that way of dissemination is missing, and I think industry can play a very big part there. I mean,
so
even if
the industry needs to be, with hand to hand with the academia, so that here again the play, the R&D is a different aspect, and the patenting is another different aspect altogether.
But it's crucial.
And with patenting, they can join hand together to patent, and IPP is more expensive and more relevant also.
So of course, and it's a win-win thing, right? I mean, you can license the patent and get money, right? You don't need to do the product.
Absolutely.
I mean, just licensing gets you big stuff.
The loyalty even flows,
Yes, and that can be a model, right? I mean, for example, many of us, we destroy a possible, opportunity in IP by publishing first.
Yes.
Because then faculty in India do not have the know-how that it takes a month to file a provisional patent. It's just 1 month.
Yes.
And then you publish wherever you want. And just that part is missing. That awareness is missing. And I know that because, and the worst thing is there is no reward. You make a patent, people will say, what? You have done nothing. Where is the paper?
Yes.
Right? And I have missed, GE, they didn't allow me to publish, but I had 20 patents.
Oh.
Yeah, I know, but that was so simple to do it, right? Most of them were idea patents, and they would just, if they liked it, they just went ahead and filed it.
Yeah.
Here, finally, after 11 years, I have 2. And that too this year. Now that I've sort of secured in my, job thing, 2. And I could have filed at least 10. I know that. At least. And world patents, not Indian patents.
That's a pity. That's a real pity.
Discussion is going on, sir, but we have time limitations. So I will take
sure.
questions from the audience. We need to, interact with them also. So I have one question. Startup career academician, when he starts up, early career, how he can do a research without any support from government as well as industry? My questions to both Dr. Banerjee and Kothari, sir, for quick answers.
I mean, you don't get funding from both government and academic and private. I mean,
at least one has to support. Unless and until there must be some support.
No, but it depends. If you, for example, physics, we have 2 categories, right? We have theoreticians, we have experimentalists, right? theory, you can, I mean, in principle, you can sit in a garden with a notebook and do calculations. That sort of, that category of people are fast disappearing though. You at least need a computer. You want to do simulations, and simulations also, high-end simulations, you need big, memory or fast processors. So absolutely without funding, experiments though you cannot do. It's just like you have to depend on others.
Kothari sir,
Yes, but yeah, you have to be creative somewhat. That is only, you have to be creative in getting support for your work. You can, sit on the shoulders of some colleague. That guy has a lab, go and do his work there. Have to have a lobby. That is what I tell my students as well. You have to build a lobby in research in India if you want to succeed.
Networking, yes.
Networking.
Right. Kothari sir, you short, sir.
Yeah, I think there again, especially the cluster thing comes into mind. The clusters, if clusters are built up, then again you have the formidable power to really go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I have a quick question to Shekhar sir also. Sir, how do you see that in this failing economy? We are talking a lot about economy for last few years. How you can see that a good R&D structure will help in boosting the economy for a country like India?
Yeah, obviously a tremendous amount of work is required, primarily even researching the economy itself, right? And of course, industry-wise research of where is the world going? Where will the world be 5 to 10 years from now? Where will India be 5 to 10 years from now? Where do we want to be? Where do we want India to be 5 to 10 years from now? Of course, we've talked about $5 trillion economy in 5 years, etc. But those are very big vision. And any vision not backed by a strategic action plan is just a dream. It's just a vision. Therefore, we need a strategic action plan to move towards that $5 trillion vision. But we need to also break up that $5 trillion vision into what is the contribution of manufacturing sector, what is the contribution of the services sector, what will be the contribution of the agriculture sector. And therefore that kind of even big picture research, in my view, is lacking. Our fundamentals are very strong primarily, but we need to leverage the strength of our fundamentals, including the strength of the population, what we call the demographic dividend. But my personal view, I don't want to be critical, is that if we are talking about India as India Incorporated, and if we want India Incorporated to prosper well and declare dividend in 5, 10, 15 years time frame, then India Incorporated will have to invest. We have to invest today so that we will be able to make profit and declare dividend 5, 10, 15 years from now.
Absolutely.
And we need to invest today in two things. One, primarily in the education of this young population and in the health of this young population. Our nutrition status is very poor. I mean, we are not, let us not go into all that, but we need to invest enough in the health and education of this young population. And my suspicion is that we are not doing enough. And therefore, if we have to invest, if we do invest adequately in the health and education of this young population, I'm sure this country will enjoy phenomenal demographic dividends in the years to come. Primarily because our fundamentals are quite strong, and we need to leverage those fundamentals.
Thank you, sir. We had very good deliberations on all the aspects of challenges for implementing high-end R&D in India. We talked about academia, industry collaborations, even collaborations in between academia. And Shekhar sir has given us a lot of new aspects from a third perspective, basically, which comes from his rich experience in the society and his own assessment and his own views. So thank you, Dr. Ayan Banerjee, Dr. Sanjib Kothari, sir, and Chandrashekhar, sir. It was really an enriching discussion for me personally as a professor, as an academician, as a researcher. And I think the same experience all the attendees also had. Now over to Chainika for concluding part. Your mic is off. Chainika, your microphone is off.
Unmute.
Thank you so much for such a thought-provoking session. Before wrapping up and requesting Praveen sir to render a vote of thanks, I shall request all the panel members to put on their videos, because as per the new normal, this is the way we cherish certain moments in life. So I shall request uh, the technical
I think all
team
of us are
to
on,
put the
right?
screenshot. Yes. Nilesh sir, please confirm once it's done.
Yes, it's done.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I shall request Praveen Patil, sir, to render a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shainika. A very thought-provoking discussion indeed. I would like to thank, on behalf of IMC and MIT World Peace University, Dr. Ayan Banerjee, Mr. Sanjib Kothari, and Mr. G. Chandrashekhar for taking out time and addressing our students, people at large, and all participants today. Your inputs are certainly valued, and they will be taken and incorporated into our feedback that we are generating from all the locations that we are conducting this session. Particularly the Kolkata and Guwahati session has given us some great insights and great thoughts, which we can carry as a recommendation to the government on improving the overall ecosystem, of the research and development in the country. Your contribution in no small measure will help us do our little bit, in contributing to the Atmanirbhar Abhiyan launched by the central government and our beloved Prime Minister. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll remain grateful to you for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I would like to thank the participants for being such wonderful audience. We shall meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. for the session. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you.